Welcome to this moody, low-key edit of Milford Sound in New Zealand. When I took this photo, I was being absolutely blown around by the wind. The rain was pouring down, and so this was a very quick-fire shot. I jumped out of the car, got it, and then got back in the car before the camera got absolutely destroyed. So it may need a little bit of work to bring out the best in this file. But in terms of the initial edit, I'm starting on a raw photo, as I always do wherever I can. That allows us to bring out the most detail, the most information. And once we have that in that raw develop, we can then take our photo edit in any direction we want with the maximum flexibility. One of the first things you want to make sure is that you have a pure black point and a pure white point, and all of that tonal information falls in between. You can see that I've developed this with a very obnoxious high saturation. I've pushed that all the way to 100. Now, why would I want to add so much color information or push as much color into this as possible when I'm working in black and white? Or that is my ultimate goal. Well, that'll become clear pretty shortly. But adding in luminosity or noise reduction, that's something that I sometimes add in just to try and clean up the file. And you might think, well, why don't you use the Luminar's default AI tools for cleaning up this image? Well, the simple answer is they're not the best. This might end up in my gallery if it's a good enough edit. I'm talking about my online gallery that people can purchase as print. So therefore, I want the maximum quality. And the tool that I use, I will show you at the end of the video and link to it in the description below. But it does a far better job than Luminar Neo, with all respect to Luminar Neo. So continuing with the edit, what I'm working on here is bringing out some structure in the photo. What I want to do is just bring information into certain areas. So we have the lead-in line of the river from the right and the lead-in line of the path on the left. So I want to bring attention to that, and I can do that by adding structure. One other thing I'm doing here with the conversion to black and white, you can now see why converting to color or pushing the color was very important, because now I can actually control the brightness in the black and white in certain areas based on what color existed there before. And so the colors, the more accentuated they are, the easier it is for us to manipulate the brightness values when we turn it to black and white. So it's very easy to know where the blues are, they're the sky, or the foliage. We can very precisely control that. Whereas that initial edit of the photo was very grey, very flat. And so those changes in black and white would have been harder to achieve. Right now, I'm looking at adding more contrast to the photo and doing that through the 𝗕𝗵𝗄𝗃 tool, but I don't want to apply it everywhere. And that's often the way I'm working when I'm doing these more refined edits, is not talking to the whole photo globally, which is what you can see as soon as I put this dramatic tool on, it's affecting the whole photo. Oftentimes, that's not what I want. But in this case, for the dramatic tool, I'm just working with a lower amount, and I think that looks nice through the whole photo. Super contrast as well. I just want to really refine the brightness values in the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. And super contrast, like its name says, it's super, man. It's fantastic for controlling the contrast. So if I want to specifically darken down those shadows, I can do that with super contrast. The midtones, playing around with those as well. It's like, do I want to make that mountain mass darker or brighter? We've got access to all of those tonal values. And so it's a really nice tool, particularly for black and white work. After that, I was just having a little flip back between where we came from and where we'd got to, just so that I could feel out the direction of the photo. And at this point, I felt like I'd actually taken it too far already. I didn't want to be too over the top with bringing out all those details. So what I decided to do was duplicate the layer and then just remove the tools that got me to that process. Once I'd actually dropped back all of those effects and just done a basic edit on this new layer, what I could do was basically get the best of both worlds. So I'm just finessing things on this edit and just not being as aggressive with all of those tools. So now it's a much flatter process, and I'm able to play with the opacity slider to see that initial edit versus the more refined edit, and then I can just have half and half by putting that opacity slider at 50%. But the issue with that is once we have that, we cannot now edit the photo as a whole. We need to export it. A little bit of a frustration with Luminar Neo with that one. But here what I've done is to bring out more detail in the photo, which I felt like the mountain needed. I've put that into the HDR merge tool, just a single layer, and that really brings out detail. I've now added that as another new layer, and what I'm able to do here is rather than just use the opacity slider to introduce it over the whole photo, I'm using the brush to mask in where I want it. So it's introducing color as well, but it's also introducing that detail that I was feeling was missing from certain areas. And that's a great use for the HDR merge tool, just to bring in detail. Now I've got those 3 layers combined the way I want them. I'm going to export that photo as a TIFF with 16 bits of data. Also, the color space is important. Don't use sRGB. It's a tiny color space. In terms of like a pool of colors available to the photo editing software, sRGB literally is a pool, whereas Adobe RGB is the ocean. ProPhoto RGB is even bigger still, but you're not going to find a monitor on the market that can actually display all those colors. So it's not really worth doing that. Adobe RGB is a nice compromise. And now you can see that we have a flat image that I'm able to go to work on again. And this is the perfect base for what I'm after for the rest of the edit. So from here, what I like to do is start working on the contrast. Ultimately, with a black and white photo, that's all you've got is contrast. It's just the difference between the bright pixels and the dark pixels. It's all the interplay of light and shade. So we need to be able to finesse and massage those tonal values as best we can. And the tool that I find is the ultimate tool for doing that is the curves tool. So I will link to a tutorial I've put together on curves if you're not really comfortable using curves or could do with a refresher, because they are honestly the most powerful tool inside Luminar Neo. Maybe that's a little bit of hyperbole, but it's right up there. It's such a powerful tool. And if you're serious about getting the most out of your photo editing, I would strongly recommend that you master curves. So you will see through this edit just how many times I initiate the curves tool. So I'm using it multiple times in a single edit. So you can see this is a very high contrast curve here. An S curve creates a lot of contrast in our image, but rather than apply it to the whole photo, what I'm doing is selectively applying it. So I'm treating the curves almost like a dodge and burn effect. So if I darken things down, that's like burning the photo. And so then I can come in and just paint it in where I want it. And it's a more controlled way of darkening your photo in the area that you want, rather than just using the dodge and burn tool. So as I'm working this, what I'm trying to do is differentiate between the foliage at the side and the path, so that we have a differential between the path and the foliage, helping to guide our viewer's eye in. The same with the river. And then around the edge of the frame, I'm painting around the edge of the sky just to darken that down. And that's almost like I'm creating my own custom vignette by painting that. Here you can see I've leveraged Luminar's very fast masking. It's really great how we can use the AI masking tools to quickly select areas. But the problem, if you see when I push this curve quite heavily, you can see that the transition line between where the mask is and where it isn't is abrupt. It's either there or not there. And so I'm coming in with a brush just to soften that off. So I'll often use those AI masks as a starting point, not as my finished mask, particularly if I'm doing a more refined edit. And if you're thinking, man, Anthony, you're really taking your time with this edit, you're really going all in on this. And yeah, I am. This isn't a professional piece, so I'm not concerned with getting the most bang for my buck in terms of time investment. I'm actually just in the flow, enjoying the process of doing this photo edit. And so if I'm enjoying it and I'm happy with my editing process, I'm not going to get concerned with the clock and how long it's taking me. So yeah, just keep applying these curves. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And you think, wow, we're blowing out all this detail all through the sky. But as I'm doing that change, I'm not looking at the sky. I was looking down here where I'm painting this over the river, and that area wasn't getting overexposed. That area was looking exactly as I want it. The same as the path here as well. And then I can just paint that effect in. So this is the equivalent of dodging our photo, brightening areas up, those areas that are important to us where we want to, again, get the viewer looking. Currently, I just don't feel like I've got the mood of the photo right. The mood, the overall look, that's what's coming next, and that's what I'm working on. This kind of dark, moody photo, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it kind of speaks to me, and maybe the sort of dark artist's mentality that I have and suffer from at times. You know, if you follow this channel, I've been quite open at times about my mental health and how I have struggled with depression. And before you start feeling all sorry for me or anything, just let you know I am doing much better now, and that's thankfully to some life changes I've forced upon myself, in terms of going to bed earlier, getting good sleep, exercise. Exercise is huge, really important for me. And I don't drink alcohol anymore. So lots of changes, but they've been really beneficial for me, and I feel so much better. But I do still see the darkness at times, and I feel like this photo, when I took this, it was like a visual representation of the feelings I get in my mind sometimes. And so the fact that I'm pushing this photo towards this dark, moody look, that's what I wanted. And I encourage you as photo editors not to be put off by the people out there that go, you've changed that, you've changed reality and pushed it too far. I get people whinging about that on my photo edits all the time, and I don't care, because for me, photo editing, the way I like to photo edit, is creating a harmony between what was captured and what I see in my mind's eye, or what I feel when I'm actually taking that photo. And so part of the artistry of the photography is utilizing the tools we have available to us, like Luminar Neo, to craft what we want to show to the world. You know, this is my vision. I see this high contrast image. I see the light popping out from around the side of the mountain. I want to illuminate the river coming in and the track. You know, that's what I'm seeing when I'm taking the photo. And I want people to feel the way that I was feeling when I was actually there taking it. And so, yeah, that's what drives a lot of my editing, particularly for this style of work, my landscape work. Yeah. Okay, back to the edit itself. What am I doing? I'm really going heavy-handed with the darkening effect here, aren't I? But leaving just that little pocket of light. The more I pull down those shadows and leave just a smaller highlight, the more dramatic I feel the image gets. But I do remember when I was editing this, I felt like I just wasn't quite getting the look that I was after. And so I really have to do quite a lot of back and forth with this photo. So there's a lot of working in with the highlights and that dodge and burn effect, and then coming back and then going again, and just iteratively trying to improve the photo. It's kind of like a bit like a sculptor working on a bit of stone. They're not going to take their chisel and a hammer and with one almighty smash, just ta-da, there is my sculpture finished. They chip away at it, chip, chip, chip. You know, tiny little changes, refining things, looking at what's right, adapting, pivoting, making changes. That's what's going on with this photo edit here, is I'm continually looking around the photo. Like I say, not something I'm always able to do when I'm recording my videos normally. So with that in mind, let me know in the comments, do you like this style of video with the voiceover, or is this not working for you? Is it good? Is it not? I don't know. So yeah, I'm just chipping away. Now look, straight up, the video's jumped here. I missed a little bit of my recording. So I'm just going through those tools, showing you what I did. Once I've added all that crunchy contrast to the photo, I mitigate that. I balance it out by adding the mystical tool, my favorite tool, right? I always put it on my photos, but I feel like it gives us that nice balance between crunchy contrast and local detail to a nice overall softening. And then as the very final step, I actually introduced a little bit of a color grade. And again, I did that with curves. I just boosted up a little bit of blue in the shadows and put in a little bit of yellow in the highlights. And that was pretty much it. The whole edit was just a combination of the sort of structure tools along with manual dodge and burn. So now I'm happy with it. I've exported the photo. A lot of people ask me about how I print my photos because Luminar Neo doesn't have a print facility, etc. I will always take my photos that are going to go to print into Photo AI. Again, link to that in the description below. Exceptionally powerful tool for upscaling your photos if you don't have enough resolution, for getting rid of noise. Sometimes, like here, you can see that it hasn't done a great job, but by just switching the mode that it's using to actually get rid of the noise, sharpen and upscale, you can get exceptional results. Every iteration of this program is getting so much better, and I really, really love Topaz. I love what it can do for you. I strongly recommend, if image quality is of the utmost importance to you, it's well worth checking out. I believe it's around $200, so it's not a cheap program, but if you compare it to what you invest in your camera lenses, all of that stuff, in your actual hardware, in terms of that, $200, it's like buying a brand new lens for your camera, or buying a bigger sensor, because it can upscale 2-fold, 4-fold, 8-fold. Like it's insane, and the quality is excellent. So if you feel like you don't get the best results from Luminar Neo's AI upscaling and sharpening, noise reduction, then absolutely check out Topaz. It's game changing. So that is my low-key black and white edit from this original shot all the way to a more artistic interpretation. You might not love it, but for me, it was how I felt when I took the shot. It is the kind of look that I was after, and that is what I encourage you to do. Just create the photos that you like. Don't worry what other people think about it. Please yourself with your photo editing. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.